Okay, everybody, thank you for being here. We're going to call the meeting to order this evening at 6:30 p.m., beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. If you've been to a board meeting recently, you know that we like to start them with our recognitions. Students and staff, employees, teachers, community members whose generosity is appreciated, whose time is appreciated. So this month we are very excited to recognize our two Odyssey of the Mind teams that competed at the statewide tournament in Syracuse last weekend, I believe. Our high school Odyssey of the Mind team delivered a very strong performance, placing 9th out of 17 teams in their division, finishing in the middle of a very competitive field. And our elementary Odyssey of the Mind team placed 17th out of 17. However, they demonstrated notable improvement by increasing their score from their regional competition, which was a few weeks prior to that, reflecting growth and a lot of continued effort. So congratulations to them. That's many years in a row now that we've sent our Odyssey teams to state competition. So that's awesome. Also, an announcement, maybe last month, I think, Mr. Gauthier was here to let us know that robotics competition tournament is coming up in April. So just a note that our robotics team is busy at work, getting their robot ready to, I believe it was pick up a lot of balls, yeah, which it looks like it's going to be pretty challenging. So that is coming up on April 16th, 17th, and 18th at the MVP Arena. And it is live streamed, so I'm sure he'll be sharing information with us so we can share it out to you if people want to watch parts of that competition. And then lastly this evening, I have to give a shout out to our elementary school reading initiative. The students did the Read from Ronald McDonald House last month, right, February, and collaboratively raised over $3,500 for the Ronald, which is the most they've ever raised. So congratulations to our elementary school readers. That is amazing and for an amazing cause. Okay. Any questions or discussion for our agenda for this evening from the board? Okay. All right, we'll begin with a resolution. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approves the agenda for the regular meeting with budget discussion for this evening, March 24th, 2026. May I have a motion? Thank you, Tony. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Francis. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, our next item is our minutes from our March 10th meeting. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approves the minutes of the executive meeting and regular meeting on March 10th, 2026. May I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Alyssa. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ray. Comments or questions on that meeting's minutes? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Next item, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education approves the minutes of the executive meeting on March 19th, 2026. May I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Francis. A second? Thank you, Sarah. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're going to kick off the substance of our meeting this evening with a presentation about our web program, Where Everyone Belongs. So I have, I think, Mrs. Hopkins and Mrs. Crane and some students. Welcome.
All right. I probably don't need this, but in case. All right, so we run the web program. This is our first year doing the web program here at Duanesburg. And we brought two friends with us. All right, so what is WEB? WEB is a middle school program that welcomes sixth graders and makes them feel comfortable throughout the first year of middle school. It's built on the belief that students can help students succeed, and we train mentors from the current seventh to be future eighth graders, and that's the year they become a WEB leader, is the eighth grade year. They're positive role models. WEB leaders are mentors and student leaders who guide the sixth graders to discover what it takes to be successful during the transition to middle school, because it is slightly different from elementary school. And, you know, these are the things we look for when we look for a WEB leader. We don't look for always a straight A student. We don't look for the star athlete. We try to find a mix of people to try to make sure every sixth grader feels like they could connect to somebody, because not everybody has the same interests. So those are the big things. We really just, our biggest thing is kind people. We need people who are kind, people who are going to see somebody sitting alone at lunch and saying, hey, come sit with us. Or, hey, you need help with your locker? I'll help you. Because it does take a lot for a kid to leave their group of friends that they have been friends with for 3 years to go ask a sixth grader to come sit with them, or to leave and go sit with that sixth grader alone. So that's really the biggest thing that we push, is we just want kind people, so those sixth graders feel welcome and not afraid to ask, you know, for help if needed.
Okay, so we wanted to go kind of through what we've done so far and what it is like from beginning to end. So we'll kind of loop around. We won't start with where we started with our application process. We'll end with that. But this summer was our first training. We ended up with 13. We had 14, but 13 showed up. So we have 13 web leaders. This was probably the most like amazing experience with, I know Laura and I, we were really excited that the students really they dove right in. They were really excited about it. They were very engaged during the training process. It's 5-hour days? And I mean, it was intense, and they at no point grumbled. They were really excited. They wanted to make sure that they were prepared, and they were really excited to have the sixth grade come in and, you know, be their leaders. So the sixth grade orientation went amazing. They did such a good job. It was our first time, so that was our first time leading them as well. We actually didn't plan for enough events, like enough games, and every single group of web leaders came up with different things that they've done as icebreakers in their own classrooms without us even asking. It's really like a student-driven day, and we really did not like go into the rooms very much. We were there in case they needed us, but it really was altogether a really great outcome, and especially for our first time, like that was, they really did a great job. So throughout the year, this will only get better as the years go on, but we collaborated with the guidance counselors who usually go in for, they go into normally it's the sixth grade, the seventh grade classes in our building, but now we have sixth grade, so that's why we have the web program. They are for sixth graders. So they did go into the sixth grade classrooms, and they actually led the lessons that the guidance counselors usually do. They thought that the web leaders said that they would have loved as sixth graders to be taught by other students, so they thought that was great. We did try to have them go into the seventh grade classrooms, which just kind of further made the point that this is a sixth grade program. The grades, that they were too close together, they were friends, so it didn't go as great, but it was a good experience, and it was nice so that the seventh graders, who hopefully will want to be web leaders, know what it would take to be a web leader. So that was also nice for them to see. So we hope to expand on that next year. So we are coming to the web leader application process. So this is just all of the dates that we have and kind of how intensive it is. So we, of course, will be on a committee to interview all of the seventh graders who apply to be web leaders. We'll have a teacher panel that will also be in those interviews. If you feel like asking them their experience with that, you absolutely can, because they did a great job. So the bar is really set high so far, but that is where we're at so far. And then so the spring play day, the web program does have this already, But we are going to kind of do our own rendition at Dwaynesburg since it's such a small school and we only really need 10 to 12 web leaders based off of our numbers coming up, which was similar to this year. So what we are going to do, normally the spring play day is just for the newly appointed web leaders. What we're going to do is we're going to make it current web leaders with the new web leaders and make it like a passing of the torch type thing. Again, we'll see how it goes. We felt that it would probably be best to have 20 kids in the room rather than 10 kids in the room. Since we did this so towards the end of the year, we made the shirts ourselves. So the goal is that they design their own shirts that they get to wear. We'll play like 1 or 2 of the games that will be at 6th grade orientation so they can see what that entails. We'll, share stories and whatever they want, and they'll give some words of encouragement, and they'll do that right now. So we have Ella and Kendra that are just going to kind of just tell you how they feel that the year has gone so far, or whatever you want to say.
Okay. I feel like this year was really good for web. I was new to the school last year, so I feel like for me to help some of the younger kids through their first year of middle school, it was helpful to see them feel more comfortable through middle school. And I also feel like I would have loved to have someone help me feel more comfortable as well. But I really enjoyed seeing them enjoy their first year of middle school and see them improve through the year. It was really cool.
So I was sorry. I think it created really good bonds between the 8th graders and the 6th graders that will definitely continue on through the grades. And I think it's good to know that they have someone with them through their journey through like high school and middle school. And I think it's just like really cool to see how like they feel about everything that we're doing and like helping them. So
I think one positive there was a lot less drama throughout the grades.
I did like how Kendra said, though, like, they kind of made a lifelong friend. So even though they're not a web leader next year, that 7th grader knows they can still see, if they see him in 9th grade, they can still ask for help, like, which is nice. I thought that was nice.
Nice job. And that's all we have. So if you guys have any questions for anybody.
It sounds like for your first, I'm sorry, Sarah. Just that for your first year, it was really, really awesome. What have you learned that you might do differently, for next year, or like add, right? I mean, extra games, it sounds like, but it also sounds like they were really good improvisers, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, our biggest thing was we were hoping to do more activities with their small group of so each mentor, there was 2 in a group, and there was probably about 10 6th graders. Because of the building project, we were kind of limited on space and timing, so we would like to strengthen that relationship going forward. So like, I would hope every 6th grader could say who, but if they didn't come to the orientation in August, they may not actually really even know who their direct web leader is. They just know that there are 10 to 12 8th graders that are here to help. So we'd like to try to strengthen that relationship. Try to find more time, more activities, I guess. And Christina's going to add to it.
Well, I'll also add that, so if a 6th grader didn't come to the 6th grade orientation, they never really got the chance to meet their web leader. So we'll definitely make sure, and again, with the building project, it was a little hard with like proximity-wise, but we'll definitely try next year to do more, like even like once a quarter or something, so they can like meet with their little small groups.
And I'm just curious. Is this on? Hello? Okay. So this is exclusively like the 8th graders mentoring the 6th graders, correct?
Yes, especially for this year, we did ask when we were at training if we could, just for this one year, do it for 6th and 7th graders, just because they technically both were transitioning this year. They highly suggested that we did not do that, and like I said, when we did it with the 7th grade, they were probably right. But yes, the point of it is really to like focus on that middle school model. So you think of like these are the incoming sixth graders, and then the eighth graders are kind of at their end of their middle school, so they're like, you know, a freshman with a senior. That's kind of the same thing. And high school does have the link program, which a lot of high schools actually have. I think I've heard of that more than I ever heard of web. But that's very similar. Like when you have a couple middle schools coming together, you have a link program for high school. So that's something. It is really designed for sixth graders. The lessons, the games, they're just, I don't know what it is between 6th and 7th grade, but it really does make a difference, and it definitely is for 6th grade.
Okay, so that link program you're talking about, that would be like our 9th graders with like 11th graders theoretically?
Or 12th, I'm not
Or
sure.
12th?
11th or 12th?
Okay, just like a mentorship program of sorts.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So quickly, maybe I missed it, but if we have a student coming in mid-year, they're assigned a web leader as well?
Well, we just had a brand new student start last week, so we will be hooking them up with one this week. We just had to, we didn't want to throw everything at them at one time. It's a lot. But yeah, so we would. If there was a new sixth grader that came to the building and we were notified, we don't teach sixth grade, so if we weren't notified, we wouldn't have known. But if we are notified, then yes, we would add them to a group and just let a web leader pop in to say like, hey, do you need help with your locker?
Yeah, because coming in mid-year is tough. Because of the social relationships have already been established, and this is a good sort of bridge to help that individual student start somewhere. And I think this is a good program. Thank you very much for this.
And guidance does a really good job of pairing them up with a student in their grade who has been here to help them with like their schedule, their locker. So we let them kind of do that first, and then we would like, hey, I'm an 8th grader. You don't know me, but hi. Like,
So we've trained up 13 eighth graders that are going to be moving on from this program. Do we have, I know we're not part of the link program, and I don't even know if it necessarily makes sense because we're not multiple middle schools come together, but do we have a peer leadership or peer mediation program that we can then graduate these kids into to support each other, the staff, or not the staff, but the rest of the student body?
Not that I know of. Not yet.
All right.
Is that the right answer? Not yet.
Not yet. There you go.
I think we talked about them getting their, feet on the ground, start kicking it off this year because we don't, they're new to it. They went to the training, Laura and Christina, and hands down enjoyed it. I think over a period of time, once they're solid at the middle level, that we can explore the high school level as well. But we don't want to overwhelm.
Well,
Christine,
again, I'm not suggesting this
Yeah.
group or this program,
Right.
but more you have 13 kids
Right.
that have gone through this training that have already reached out to their fellow students. It would be best not to lose that.
Right. Agreed.
Any other questions? Thank you so very much for being here and sharing your experiences with us. We really appreciate it. Okay. Okay, next up we have Coach Simpson with our athletics winter recap.
So this winter we had 10 total teams with 96 total student athletes. I'll get to the numbers more in a second, but something we're always proud of our scholar athletes team. Being an athlete is tough. Being a student is tough. When you're a student athlete, combine it even harder. Having 4 out of our 5 varsity teams having a 90% or higher GPA, we're always very proud of. So we have 3 total modified teams with 2 JV teams, and I always talk about how it's amazing how they grow. Something that's going to be interesting moving forward is what are going to happen to the numbers across the board. Because you look at the high school numbers, that junior, senior group are a little bit of sophomore too, down just a little bit. That's that kind of COVID cohort where they lost those last couple of years of youth sports. Some of them didn't come back, some did. But if you look at modified numbers, really across the board are pretty high, and the youth numbers, especially the youth programs here, are very high. So we're looking, hopefully we added JV baseball. We'll talk about that when I get to the spring sports towards the end of the year. But adding back some of those JV teams as the numbers grow, which is always the hope to get them all back. But I think what you're going to see with how high our youth numbers are right now, a lot of these numbers continuing to grow. But we got to wait and see because these kids get to start some of our programs in first grade, and now they're not losing those couple years that may not have them come back. So I know youth numbers are very high, hoping to grow our numbers across the board. Starting with wrestling, they had a heck of a postseason run. 6 out of the 9 wrestlers placed at the Class D tournament. In the WAC, for the All-Stars, Hunter and Wyatt got first-team All-Stars. Zach, AJ, Will, and Max got second-team All-Stars. And then Wyatt and Hunter made it to the state tournament. Wyatt was a sectional title winner, made it to the state tournament, and finished 5th. And if you've never been to I'll talk about our wrestling duels too, but any type of postseason tournament for wrestling, 10 mats going at once. If you're not big into the sport, you don't know what the heck is happening. These guys wrestle like 6 matches in one day sometimes. What they do is amazing. So Wyatt finishing 5th, second time at states, is just an incredible, and he's got 2 more years. So what's he going to do with those 2 more years? I think that 5th is going to continue to climb. And shout out, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but Sean being first-year wrestling head coach, having all these placements for first-year teacher, first-year coach is amazing. Cheer, lots of moving pieces with the low numbers. I can tell you that Kelsey wanted me to put in there that the fact that we got to use the mascot outfit all the time, they were beyond excited about, which you can see in the photo. And with the low numbers there and, really trying to form a team, they had 4 first-year members. So it was basically starting from scratch, trying to build this up. Bowling. Chris Wyansky was extremely proud of this bowling group because they are pretty young. They had the 2 seniors, but the rest, you look at that picture, you got some middle schools in there too on a varsity team. 5-match win streak, all 8 bowlers at some point had their best career score. They bowled over 903 times in matches, which means every bowler that gets the score is pushing the 200. Now, I got to ask Chris if Mayfield is their rival in bowling. I'm not quite sure, but he wanted me to put in there. They beat him for the first time in 5 years. I will figure that out if that's one we got to circle on our calendars. But he was very excited. They beat him in 5 years. And then in the league, they finished 3rd in the regular season, 4th at the league tournament. And our league has, I think we're up to, don't want to misquote, either 14 or 15 league schools now in the WAC. So small school with a young team finishing that high is a great season for a young team. Girls basketball, low numbers this year. They only had 8, 4 of which were 8th graders. And I know Chris was somewhere in here at one point, but where they started the year in that first game in our tip-off tournament to where they finished, they reached the semifinals and sectionals. The strides they made as a young team were tremendous. Very proud of that young group with having 4 8th graders on a varsity team. And then for summer recognition, Stella got to play in the senior all-star game last week. And then Edith was 2nd team all-WAC. And when you make the semifinals and more in sectionals in basketball, they vote. It's not even us, it's the committee that votes for all-stars for each team. And Edith was selected as our all-star for the Final Four for sectionals. Boys basketball, we finished with the best record in Class C with 17-3. We earned the 2 seed for sectionals. We were the co-division champs and league honors. 2nd team, JJ, which is pretty cool as a sophomore. Senior Cody made 3rd team, and he was also at the senior all-star game and represented us last week at that game. And the last thing that I wanted to end with was a couple large events that we had this year. Every year, the wrestling always hosts the 2 big wrestling duels here. And once again, if you haven't been to those things, wild days. We got matches all day right there in Joe Benham. With chairs set up, you got 2 mats in the gym. And once again, these kids are wrestling 5-6 times in one day if they get the matches. A lot of coordinating between youth wrestling, the varsity team, JV kids, modified kids, Booster Club, the parents. I think they're here. I always ask Serena, 5:30 in the morning, I think, Some of them get in here in the Booster Club room to get that going. And I know she's up earlier than that to get the breakfast sandwiches going. Great events for us. And then this year, as you guys know, we talked about at the beginning of the year, hosting that tip-off tournament. Ended up being a huge success, but as always, everything we do in the winter, big plans, there was a snowstorm. We had the Booster Club shoveling out there, kids, coaches. We made it work, and the great thing is, and I always put that out there because it might have been the basketball teams that kind of hosted it, but it was a Booster Club event that the money gets to go to whoever in athletics. And we raised just under 3,000, right, Serena? At just that two-day event, and that's just going to go back to whatever student athlete needs it or team. So it was a great success overall for us to have it. And that is what I have for winter athletics. Any questions?
Any questions? I think so. Congratulations to all of our
Yes,
athletes.
thank you.
That's amazing. It off and I didn't turn it back on. Okay, next up we have item 4.01, a Board of Education statement. Mr. Bailey?
Good evening. The Board of Education has heard and takes seriously the concerns raised by our community following recent remarks and media coverage related to student conduct and school climate. We want to start by being clear about what guides us. Every student deserves to learn in a safe, respectful, and inclusive environment. The decision to examine concerns about inappropriate language and behavior was not made lightly. It comes from our responsibility to listen to students and to continually improve our schools. At the same time, we recognize that the way in which this information was shared publicly caused real hurt and frustration. We understand why. The engagement by Ms. Ross with the media led to broad characterizations that do not reflect the full context of our schools or the values of this community. This is not a characterization the board supports. The approach to media engagement also fell short of the level of care and oversight our community expects. The board acknowledges this, and we are taking action. We are revising our policies for media engagement to ensure clear protocols and stronger review before any information involving our school is shared publicly. The superintendent has been directed to work with the board to implement these changes and will be expected to meet these strengthened standards moving forward. We know that rebuilding trust takes time. We are committed to listening, to learning from this experience, and to doing better. We will continue to support a thoughtful review of school climate while ensuring that our communication reflects the care, accuracy, and respect that this community deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our next item is our ex officio student board members report. So I'll leave it to you, Santino.
All right. So there was last board meeting was pretty recent, so it's a bit informal today. But Ari, due to scheduling conflicts with the board meeting being moved, she couldn't attend today, sadly. But I sent her best regards. She does. And for events going on in the school, first of all, I want to talk about the Elevating Student Voices program. If for those who are not aware, it's a program run by Ms. Shadina, and it helps educate students on topics relating to social issues plaguing the district, like, for example, neurodiversity and the struggles that bilingual students or new English language learners face in the district. Because there's people with those, there's new English language learners in the district, and it's something that people have to be aware of, how to make those people fit in, especially. And there's been a lot of compassion among students with people who are here, I've noticed, and it's been very helpful to the students that have been participating. And along with that, Mr. Simpson, he went over the winter athletics, and spring athletics now starting up again, There's track, softball, baseball, that sort of thing. And especially for a lot of the multi-school mergers for sports, like with lacrosse and trap, I believe. It's been very useful for students, athletes who are exceptional in their sport. Like especially for lacrosse, there's some exceptional athletes from our school who are able to participate at the school level due to the new mergers in place now, and they're tremendously appreciative of that program. And along with that, the NHS is currently working on a recycling project to improve recycling in the district, and it's kind of in the earlier stages right now, but we're working on getting bins and labeling them and that sort of thing. And it's going very well. And that's about it. That's all I have.
Santino, can I just mention to you that there is an environmental club in the elementary school that I bet would love to collaborate with the National Honor Society.
We are working on that.
Awesome.
That's part of it. Are there any questions?
Yeah, quickly, how many, in the Elevating Student Voices, how many participants do we have?
It's been growing in recent times. I think at the last BOCE's meeting we had, there was approximately around 5 of them.
Mhm.
But we held regular meetings in school during lunch periods, and I've seen as many as like 8, 7, or 8.
And this is something we plan on growing
Yes,
as we continue?
it's been growing recently, and
Good.
So
anticipated to
Santino,
keep
can you
growing.
kind of explain to the board it's a regional approach
Yes.
with BOCE, so it's not just Waynesburg students?
It's collaborative with multiple schools for information sessions and like those talks I mentioned before.
And then when is the big date in April where you all come together at Proctor's?
I'm not sure the exact date.
It's in
but
April, though. I
It
think.
is in
Yeah.
April, yes, that's correct. And we work together to do service projects for a school to push those or help those social issues that we talk about in a lot of those info sessions. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Santino. Could you pass me that? Okay. Our next item on the agenda is public comment. I will just remind everyone that there are some expectations for public comment, and that is that the public comment is not the time to register specific complaints about individuals by name or title that haven't already been addressed through the proper channels. We ask that it's residents and residents only that can address the Board of Education. Let me see, we have you signed up on the sign-up sheet. We ask that when participating in privilege of the floor, we ask that folks are courteous and respectful, that we're modeling for our students how one can participate and have their voice heard in situations where there is agreement or disagreement with other people's views. So I will, with that being said, I have one person that's signed up, Mrs. Misek. I'll invite you up.
I'm sure you guys all know me. I just kind of wanted to come up here. I appreciate the statement from the board. I will say, as far as the community is concerned, I don't think you heard them. I'm sure you're going to hear from them in the future. But I wanted to address a statement that I heard last board meeting, which was that a particular member stated that they have been here their whole life, has gone to school here, and nothing has changed in the time that they've gone to school here and now have kids here. And what I pose to you as the board is to ask yourself, if that's true and nothing has changed, why has it not changed? Because the most advantaged seats in this entire room are right there to make a change. You are the ones that write the policies and the code of conduct. So why it hasn't changed in all this time, as was stated, is beyond me, if that's the way you truly feel. I'm going to tell you personally, I've raised 4 boys. I've graduated them all from this district. 3 of them have gone on to serve this country, okay, and have gone to some very nasty places. And when they got home, they appreciated this community and the people that live here much more than they ever did when they were in school. So I just want you to take the time to think about that. Why has nothing changed if you're the ones that write the policies and you're the ones that write the code of conduct? So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mrs. Masick. Thank you. Normally, we have to have a sign up. If there was anybody else that did not have an opportunity to sign up, though, but had intended to speak, I will open that up. Just ask you to state your name and thank you.
Hi, I'm Marlena Securo, live over in Duanesburg. And I'm just going to say, I'm not from this community, came in recently. Me and my husband moved here because we love it. But I did come from a school that had a race war. Back in 1996, if you don't remember, Amsterdam School District had it. It's extremely scary to live through. Second, I'm going to address the board directly. Why aren't we looking at the violence happening in our elementary school? The bullying that's going on there. Because my daughter's coming home with bruises on her from other students touching her. Don't look at me like that, like you don't know. You don't answer my emails. So we need to start addressing this problem as a whole, from the bottom up. It starts with our administration.
Thank you, Mrs. Securo. Okay, our next item on the agenda is our superintendent's report. Sorry, I didn't see you back there. Again, we have a sign-in, so if you could just state your name and your
Yes,
where you live.
my name is James Simon. I live on Van Patten Road. I've been here for 13 years. I have 4 boys, 3 in the school district, and I'm just here to read a letter on behalf of a fellow community member. Dear Board of Education, I'm writing out a concern about what it truly means to be an effective and outstanding leader and how the leadership within our district reflects those expectations. This concern is specifically directed towards someone who can't be named. When we talk about the leadership in our schools, we're not simply referring to titles or positions, we're talking about impact. Leadership is not about being in charge, it's about being someone others trust to follow, especially in moments of uncertainty or difficulty. Effective leadership requires integrity, doing what we all say we will do, and being honest even when it's uncomfortable. Owning our mistakes when we get it wrong, and we will get it wrong sometimes. It's part of growth. What matters is how we respond. Growth depends not on perfection, but on how we respond when things go wrong. Leadership also demands accountability. When challenges arise, we don't point fingers, we take responsibility, and when things go right, we recognize the people who made it happen, our teachers, our staff, and our students. Strong leaders are decisive. They do not avoid difficult choices or delay action when it is needed. They listen, consider, and then lead. When new information arises, they are willing to adjust, not as a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. Equally important is how leaders treat people. Emotional intelligence is essential. Our schools are built on relationships, and those relationships require respect, consistency, and understanding. Students must feel safe, staff must feel supported, families must feel heard. Clear and honest communication is critical. Say what needs to be said clearly, honestly, and respectfully. Uncertainty grows in silence, but trust grows in transparency. Great leaders are consistent. They show up with the same values and expectations each day, creating stability in an environment where it is deeply needed, especially for our students. Finally, outstanding leaders build others up, not by instilling fear. Leadership is not just about today, it's about developing future leaders. If we're doing this right, we are creating a culture where people feel empowered rather than diminished. At its core, leadership in our schools is about more than decisions, it's about people. It's about creating an environment where students can learn, grow, and feel safe, where educators are supported to do their best work. That's the standard, and that's what our students deserve. I do not feel that our current someone who can't be named reflects these qualities. Instead of fostering a culture of trust and empowerment, there's a sense of fear among teachers and staff. In critical moments, accountability has been lacking. When students attempt to share their thoughts and perspectives, they avoid direct engagement and at times appear to hide from these conversations rather than face them openly. If our community had truly been heard, there would have been a clear, sincere apology followed by immediate, meaningful action to demonstrate that commitment. Instead, responsibility was deflected. Communication has felt inconsistent between staff and the broader community, and the response has not reflected the level of sincerity our students who are still hurting deserve. Lastly, Duanesburg deserves better. Our teachers and staff deserve better. Most importantly, our students deserve better. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move to our next item on the agenda, which is our superintendent's report.
Oh, I'll take my stuff with me then. Okay. This on? Okay. I don't want to stand behind a screen. There are some updates I do want to share with the public, but I wanted to take a minute just to begin tonight with something simple and sincere. I am sorry. My recent remarks in the media and in the district communications caused hurt for students, staff, and families, and I take responsibility for that. I know my words were received in ways I did not intend, and I'm truly sorry for the frustration, the disappointment, and the hurt they created. When I spoke, my goal was to acknowledge concerns that some of our students have bravely shared about their experiences. But I understand that the way I communicated those concerns felt much broader, as if I was speaking about all of our students or questioning the dedication of our educators. This is not how I see this community, and it does not reflect the deep respect I have for the people who make Duanesburg what it is. This district is filled with remarkable young people and adults who care deeply about them. And as someone who lives here and who's proud to call this my community my home, I see every day kindness, strength, and commitment that define Duanesburg. My comments did not reflect that really, and I regret that deeply. Over the past several weeks, I've had the opportunity to listen, really listen, to the students, the staffs, and families. These conversations have been honest, sometimes emotional, and incredibly meaningful. I am grateful to everyone who shared their perspectives with me. Your voices have helped me better understand the impact of my words and the work I need to do to rebuild trust. These moments have reminded me how important and that my communication reflects the values of this district: respect, clarity, and partnership. I'm committed to growing from this experience and showing that my commitment through my actions. As we move forward, here's what I will continue to focus on: creating more intentional spaces for students to share their experiences and ensuring their voices shape the work ahead. Working closely with staff to understand where they feel unheard and unsupported, and addressing those concerns honestly and with care. Strengthening our partnership with the broader Duanesburg community, ensuring that our work around school climate is shaped not only by the experiences of those in our buildings, but also by the voices, values, and hopes of the families and neighbors who support our schools every day. Keeping our shared mission at the center, ensuring that every student feels safe, valued, and connected to our school. I'm learning from this moment, and I'm committed to doing better. My hope is that together we can use this experience to strengthen our relationships and deepen our shared focus on what matters most: our children. As the board works to strengthen the communication policy, I'm committed to walking alongside them and alongside all of you as we move forward with clarity, care, and a shared focus on our students. Thank you for your continued partnership and for the grace so many of you have shown me. I am proud to be part of this community, and I look forward to moving ahead together. Okay, is it on? Excuse me. Just want to give a shout out and a thanks to so many community members. Today was the college fair at the elementary school, led by Dana Kamer. So many great folks in this community came out. The kids were adorable, running around to the tables and talking with different occupations. So just to let you know that we had Isaiah Johnson as a union operator, Jen Nightingale, who's a vet, Michael Nadeau, who was a pest control wildlife. I have to say his sons were adorable, explaining how they catch the animals and they release them and how proud they are. Ben Yakler as a firefighter. Again, the kids were happy to try on his gear. Amanda Frost as a physical therapist. We had Schenectady Police Department. We had Gary Relation and Andrew Danable. We had Michael Sargent, the building construction program manager. Our own Rose Ganster was geologist. We had some hairdressers and business owners, Heather Hines and Becca Cleary. We had a publisher, Remley, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this, Gorsuch. Yeah. And then we had our own Francis Spohr, video game production. We had our own SROs, Officers Gomez and Leary. As they're new to us over the past few weeks, they really enjoyed getting to know the kids. And another geologist, Nathan Graber. And then we also had Robert Padone, who was a bridge construction. So thank you to all these community members who came out, spent some time with our kids at the elementary building this morning. It was well received by students and staff. And that's all I got.
You said college fair, you meant career fair. Just wanted to point that. Yes, you said college, but we're not quite there that with the elementary school, but it sounds pretty cool.
It is always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, the elementary school is more fun than the high schools, because the high schools, they want to know how much money they can make, not necessarily interested in sort of, what do you get to do? And so you made Fall Guys all by yourself. I'm like, no, so yeah.
And pre-K.
It's such a great program. And pre-K, that was a very quiet 15 minutes.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is our Assistant Superintendent of Management Services report. Mr. Rivenberg, we're going to talk budget.
Okay. So tonight we will discuss the third component of the budget that we have not talked about so far, being the program portion of the budget. So it includes salaries and benefits of all teachers and staff who deliver pupil services, guidance, health, library, media, BOCES programs, special education services, textbooks, equipment, athletics, and transportation costs. So it's a pretty big part of the budget, except for bus purchases, although I did actually include information about the buses towards the end of this presentation, just because it was not ready at the time that we talked about capital. So this is a overview of the program budget. There are some of the lines that we will see some fluctuations, because I've gone through and done a deep dive on some of the budget items or budget lines, and adjusted teacher salaries and made sure that teachers were in the right budget line. So there are some adjustments there. So overall, though, for the program budget, looking at a 5.02% increase on that section. Again, that's about a 3/4 of the portion of the budget. So pretty large portion of the budget there, including, so you'll see that the teaching regular school section, the 2110 section actually looks like it decreased, but it's because some of the teachers that were in that section actually were supposed to be in special education. So that is reflected a little bit better now moving forward. So
Would you like us to
instruction,
hold
but
questions till the
I'm
end?
sorry, what's that?
Do you want us to hold questions till the end?
Yes, and then we'll dive back into that. Yeah. So instructional budget realignment. So done some corrections, as I just said. The 2110 to 2250 just decreased that regular school expenses and then moved it to students with disabilities. Then created a new ENL line for the 2259 code, and that covers the new English as new language teacher, which currently serves now 6 students. So if you look back just a couple years ago, we had no students for ENL, and now we have 6. So we have to continue to serve those students as they move into the district, and so the budget line has been created for that. And then some guidance realignment, just basically to reallocate as a staff member from one section of the budget to another based on certification, because we have to report people as they're certified under the correct budget line. Instructional additions to the budget to add a school monitor to increase a non-instructional salary line for that person to serve as in-school suspension / hall monitor, or a building aide, whatever title we choose to carry that on. And then BOCES services, again, that continues to increase, though we did pretty well with this year with our BOCES aid, are actually going into 26, 27. The projections look pretty good for that too. So continuing to use that BOCES services for some of the educational services that we need here in the district, it makes it better to get that aid back the following year. Special education teacher, this will be to add a teacher position for an 812 class in the elementary school, and this would be instead of sending students out to outplacements, which in the theory would cost an exorbitant amount of money compared to what you're saving by starting it with one teacher and setting it with a one teacher and an aide or 2 aides. So then some transportation efficiency to expand and restructure the full-time mechanic / maybe a bus driver position to address our fleet maintenance. It's very hard for one person to manage the fleet, and it's definitely necessary that Jeremy has somebody to help out in the garage in order to keep our fleet running. There were a few times there where we thought we weren't going to have enough buses to get through because we had buses down, they just break down, and when you have the simplest thing, you have to take it out of service just because there's so many important inspections that have to be made, before you roll it on the road. Health insurance premiums, we're looking right now at a 10% increase for using the Fulmont Health Trust. This was originally, it started as a 15% increase, but the Health Trust has creatively found a way to navigate down to a 10%. So while other health insurance trusts are facing much larger increases, we've managed to make ours come down for next year. So this is just a snapshot of what BOCES aid is doing for our BOCES is doing for the district as we continue to a large portion of our budget is actually with BOCES. The aid generated based off of the 24-25 school year budget for 25-26, $924,498. The district budget is comprised of BOCES services actually 10%, so it's a large portion of budget. And then also for every dollar spent, what the average is estimated about 53% on the dollar for services that we purchase through BOCES. The district share of the BOCES administrative budget is 1.03. And we are sending 36 kids to career and technical education, and 3 of them, and then we are sending 3 for special ed locations within the BOCES. The state aid estimations have not changed since we just talked a couple weeks ago. So it's just a recap again. The 1% increase on foundation aid. There still might be hope or not. I'm not really sure. But as you can see, 1% is not does not help districts where we're faced with 10% increases on health insurance, 4% increases on staffing, and then other increases that are well above 5% on just contractual things that districts have to participate in and buy. And then some of our other larger aid portions are the BOCES there, and so an increase there on BOCES aid, and then high excess cost, and the building aid based on the capital project, the bonds. So that's why we're seeing our budget increased so much for 26-27, that large portion of the budget. So, but it's also balanced out with that state aid that's coming in. So that covers that portion of the cost there. These are the differences from the earlier portion, or from the early estimates of the state aid. So it actually went down a little bit, but again, we're going to have to wait it out until state figures out their budget. Calculated tax cap hasn't changed again, 2.93%, and then we're assuming a 2.9% increase on the tax levy for next year, for 2026-27. And then to bond out only for 2 buses this year, or for 26-27, to purchase 2 gasoline power buses, 1 large 65 passenger and a 30 passenger. And this will be to replace buses that are determined to not be road ready or not going to pass DOT. So DOT inspections are actually every 6 months on a school bus. So they are inspected very thoroughly. I'm sure probably a lot more thoroughly than our cars. But there's a lot of things that are important with an inspection. And it comes to when it comes to rust on the buses, for some reason they just keep rusting away, and we got to replace them. So here's just a look at what our fleet looks like. So in September of 25, we actually removed a 65 passenger from our fleet. In March, at the last meeting, we removed a 6 passenger, a Suburban, and a 30 passenger from our fleet. So for 26-27, we're only looking for that for 2 buses, the 65 passenger and the 20 passenger are going to get removed from the fleet. Those are both at their 157 is rusting right out from the frame, and then 159 has definitely served its life. It has got high mileage and has also rusting out and will be tough to pass DOT inspections in the future. So over the past few years, we've actually reduced our fleet down from 30 buses. At one point, just after COVID, we had 30 buses on the fleet, and down to 27. I don't know if any of you remember back a few years ago, we had so many buses that were actually getting repaired and service that we actually had to borrow a bus from Mohonasen at one point. So 27. So we're reducing that down though a little bit, and we should be good to move on. So part of that number that's there would be those buses that are getting replaced for next year. So the budget status, this has not really changed much. Just an increase on the building aid. For the construction debt, foundation aid just still started at 1%, currently assuming that 2.9% increase on the tax levy. Contractual and supply costs going up, no program cuts. So this is a look at both the expense budget and revenue budget, just a summary to show what we're looking at for our budget increases and our revenues. So also I will highlight that a large portion of the budget increase is in that capital section of the budget because of the building debt. And then we will talk again for the budget adoption on April 21st. And just to highlight, we're continuing all to support all student programs in this budget. No staffing cuts. The tax levy increase proposed at 2.9%, and to adopt the budget on the 21st. And then don't forget the budget vote is Tuesday, May 19th. My monitor keeps phasing out here. And I'll take questions from the board.
Yeah, I guess just kind of the obvious, we're looking at 11.5% increase this year, year over from
Yes.
last year's budget.
Yep. But again, that's, a large portion of that is that building debt that's in there.
Right, but
So,
like that's, so let's help people wrap their head around it, because we are
Sure.
proposing that as being tax neutral, but now we're saying that's the biggest part of our tax increase.
no.
Okay, then,
That's not, so the building debt is not what's causing the tax increase. It's the increase for other, like you're gonna go looking at staffing contractual, you're looking at contractual obligations for the district, programs and services. That's what you're seeing the increase on the tax levy, because ultimately the state aid that's coming through for the building debt is fairly high, and almost, so you're looking at a $1.4 million in increase assumed for building aid. So then when you look at,
so then we would have to account for that, understood.
yeah,
But I feel like there's a little bit of a possible misunderstanding how this could come up just in the English language of how this is an increase, but we're saying it's tax neutral. You see what I'm saying?
yeah, I mean, so it's, yeah, but again, like, so looking at the capital section of the budget, you're 1.5% or 1.5 million on an increase on the capital budget. And then, that's also including bus debt as well. And then you've got that aid coming back in to balance that back out. So what we're really seeing the increase on the tax levy increase, or I'm saying increase one more time, right, is the program section of the budget, and that's the the 5% increase of the budget. But again, that's to continue programs for kids. So there's higher expenses, like special education services are not getting any cheaper.
Okay, and then I guess the only other thing that really kind of sticks out is a reserve appropriation fund that's quite a bit more than we've ever had.
Yep. So I would recommend that, if we get into that situation where we, instead of asking for more money or whatever, then we need to start, we're going to have to start using our reserves, especially if budget is going to be tight, in order to pay for services. Because otherwise the next step is to start cutting programs, and I know we don't want to do that. So in order to make sure that we stay afloat, you're going to use their savings a little bit more. And last year we had a good finished year. So remember, during audit, we did talk about how we finished last year at a good year, and it was because we had additional interest that came in because we invest our funds. We had a health insurance trust that had closed out, and we had extra money that came to us. That was definitely a one-hit wonder there, because we didn't know how much was going to come to us. We didn't know how much the health insurance company was going to actually take back. So it's hard to budget for something like that when you don't know and when the health insurance trust is going to close. So we got that too. So that gives us that balance. So for next year, in order to maintain staff and programs, this seems Like we're going to have to dig into our pockets a little bit more into the savings account and use either fund balance or reserves.
What was my question? Oh, it's impressive that health insurance is only 10%. It's not great, but it's impressive. I do. I like the. I mean, how am I trying to phrase this? Obviously, we have a bus problem with Jeremy, in that if he
Yeah.
gets hit by a bus, we're in a lot of trouble.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think
He's
it's
a very valuable employee.
So I do think it's great that we are looking finally at providing him support,
Yeah.
Similar to what Jeremy was for Harry.
Correct.
So I think that's great that we're looking to do that. Where was I going with my story? I've completely forgotten. So I think that's amazing. You said we're down to 27 buses. How many routes do we run a day? Right.
How many routes are we driving today? That's a really tough question.
I mean, there's what, 9?
Well, there's 9. Yeah, I mean, there's 9 regular runs. Then there's
Transportation to Albany BOCES.
So there's transportation to BOCES, to both BOCES. So you got Harry CTE, Albany CTE, several other private school locations, and then we have some kids that we pick up due to McKinney-Vento. So we have to send buses out, and at the same time that we're sending those out, we can't send the same driver, so we've got a lot of splitting up to do. And then there's also midday runs. There's the CTE, then you got to pick them back up, and then bring the kids for the PM runs out, for the PM programs out at both locations. And then private school placements as well. So parentally placed private school kids are also a part of that mix. So we have to go and pick up and transport those kids and bring them to their programs, both in the morning and the afternoon. So,
Do you know roughly how many miles we drive a year? I actually do know the number.
You know?
Yeah, because it was in the electric report.
Oh.
what is this, pop quiz night? Or?
Yeah, I'm pushing it. I want to know.
No, I don't.
It's like 380,000 miles.
Okay.
Which is just an incredible number for. We keep telling ourselves how small we are.
Right.
We
do have 60 square miles that we cover in the district, so.
Yeah, and we go as far as Colony.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I think that the transfer. I'm glad that there's a real focus on sort of maintaining our transportation fleet, and providing some support there. And I'm happy to see a line item to sort of build out the monitoring and discipline support system that the board's interested in. So, thank you.
Quick question about the health insurance trust.
Yeah.
The projection went from 15 down to 10. Okay, is that a firm projection, or will it come back like 12%, and would there have to be a remittance back to the insurance company on this, or is that a firm projection?
It's a firm projection, yeah.
Okay, because that's pretty good.
Yeah, so the health insurance trust will settle everything. They're expected to settle this Friday. So
we're not going to come back with a new projection of like 12% and no remittance back to the insurance.
There's a 99.999% chance that will not happen.
Good to know. Good to know. Thank you.
I have a couple questions about fuel assumptions. For transportation's a big number. How do you model and predict fuel expenses for the budgeting for when budgeting for fuel expense?
So looking at trends both from past couple years and also what our current fleet, what we have. So it's important to consider how many propane buses we have and how many gasoline buses we have, and also what the current prices are, but also doing a little research on what the gas prices are actually doing too. Got a plan for that, but there's been years though when we can't really predict some of the large increases. Back, I want to say, I think it was like 12 years ago. I remember the district going through a difficult time when the gas prices really increased a severe amount after the budget had already been settled, and then the district is faced with trying to dig into other budget lines and try and transfer the money to make sure that we have enough gasoline and heating fuel too. So heating fuel is on the same boat. So because we use heating oil for our school buildings, that's another thing that we have to consider. So looking at just all of the economic conditions and what prices are at the time, just to best predict. It's really a shot in the dark, an estimate based on what you know.
I ask because fuel costs are quite unpredictable right now.
Yeah.
Do we employ any hedging strategies, like forward contracts or anything like that, in order to limit our downside risk on fuel?
So we do use the state contract pricing. So they do lock in costs, but there are times when they have market adjustments too. So we will continue to use those resources as a way to at least somehow have a solid an estimate. But if they do make their mid-market adjustments, which we've seen happen, then we have to be prepared for that too.
Okay, that applies to both diesel fuel and propane?
Yeah, well, we actually don't have any diesel buses. Okay. So we only have gasoline and propane. The only thing that uses diesel in our district now are tractors, maintenance equipment.
Thank you.
Yep.
I want to ask more about buses. I love buses. You mentioned that we transport students for private school. Is there like a range on that? What's the deal there? Because that's actually not new, but not something that lives in the forefront of my mind to me.
15 miles. So as long as the school is within 15 miles of the pickup point, it would be travel, and we travel to that private school.
I have a couple questions, Jeff.
Sure.
I know you don't know this, but like, when do you think we'll get the state numbers? Like, what do they tell you? Is that we have to wait for that budget to pass and then?
Yeah, I mean, last year.
I ask this every time because I
know. So last year we ended up passing our budget. We ended up passing our budget before the state budget,
right,
because of the state taking so long
right,
to adopt their budget. And there was some wisecrack that was made somewhere along the line that I heard at some meeting, like, oh, it's going to happen again. So we may have to be prepared to take our best guess again this year and kind of guess at where we're going to be. Although, as we get closer to budget, there may be some more information. We do have advocacy through many of our groups that will kind of, give us that information as to what it looks like the governor is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll continue to kind of speculate right now, but regardless, we still have to adopt.
Right.
For some reason, we're held to the higher standard and need to adopt our budget on time. So hopefully the state will this year, but
okay.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Who knows?
Is the question.
Yeah,
Right? That's the answer to the question.
It's hard to guess.
All right, I have a couple more. Sorry. I know now, this being my 5th year on the board, that special education costs are a big driving force of our expenditures. And so just from my education, but then also for others, to understand what the savings, like when we have to send students outside of district, What is the range of cost for one student?
It can range anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000, depending on what the services are that the kid needs,
Okay.
and sometimes even over that. So we've also been faced with having to send a kid to a residential placement, which is a very, very expensive bill.
Yeah.
So those kinds of expenses are, if you can keep it in-house, you're saving significant amount of
Considerable
money.
amount.
Yeah.
That's the high cost, excess cost line, right?
Yes,
Is
yeah.
that last year we paid, or this year we're paying quite a bit for some of our placements?
Correct. Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I want to come back to Sarah's question. No, it's fine. To Sarah's question. So I think maybe if it was on a, not that you can do this right now because you're flipping back and forth, but like on a, comparison of revenue versus expenditures. I think if I'm understanding you correctly, Jeff, that we are anticipating $1.4 million in revenue to offset the $1.5 million in expenditure on those two different slides.
Yes.
And so we're looking at a $100,000 difference, and that also is. Can you point to other lines that make up that 100,000? Because you mentioned that had to do with buses, or is that something that we have to make up in our own, like out of our reserves?
So I think you're asking a couple different questions there.
Sorry.
Because, no, it's okay. But what I would say to that is that if we look at this, for instance, you will see that there are several lines that have to be increased. So $262,000 just in health insurance, which is what we're obligated to do. And that's the part where unfortunately that's where our tax levy is going.
No, I understand that. I think what I'm asking is that our revenue line for what we expect from state aid is 1.4, and then our expenditure line is 1.5. So there's $100,000 difference there, and I think I'm just trying to understand, right? So in capital, it's 1.5, and I'm just trying to understand that does that make sense? Maybe I'm just confusing myself, but.
Yeah,
It doesn't
so in
perfectly balance it out, I guess is what I'm saying.
No,
but-
it doesn't, because you're still, we also have transportation costs. So you have your bus bond costs too.
So that's what's,
right.
that's
And
what I want to
then
clarify. That's
our
what's
building,
adding that $100,000.
right, and our building aid isn't 100%, it's 79.8%. So we still have to pay for a portion of the bond for capital projects, but we get a large portion back. But we still have to pay for that small portion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then lastly, just a comment that with this budget, there's no staffing cuts.
No
There's
staffing
no
cuts.
faculty cuts. There's none of that, and no programming cuts at all.
Nope. No cut to any resources or anything like that for students or programs.
Thank you.
Still
Or people.
planning on-
No people.
Right,
We're
no
not losing any people. Great. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one more question. The BOCES increase is pretty significant, approximately 20%. Is that due to enrollment or additional services, or is there anything interesting in that number that accounts for the increase?
You're talking about the aid, BOCES aid? That's okay. Yeah, so it's revenue. Okay. Your microphone's off.
I know. Just as a reminder, with BOCES aid, it is a lap year, right? So the services that we subscribe to, we get the money the following year. And we do, this is actually really great for our community, our kids. We have a really good increase in kids attending like CTE, which we're happy to offer those opportunities. Every year, Jeff and I have to go through and look at BOCES services, and we get usage reports. We actually made quite a few we deleted quite a few things that that year after year we would prescribe or subscribe to, and no one was really using. So I think part of that reflective cost is with also students with disabilities, right? If they're attending a BOCES program, CTE, right? Those costs as well, and that's reflective in that $900,000 money coming to us from BOCES.
have one last question, which has nothing to do with this, but Santino raised a question last time, and I want to make sure that we address his question, which was with regard to, well, Santino raised a question from a community member's question. So, and I see you gave us some information, but I thought it would be really good for you to share that with everyone as
Yes,
well.
and so
Santino, did you get this paper?
I
Fantastic. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder there, buddy.
I will also say this, that it was it's also a part of a FOIL request, so that one will be answered fairly shortly because it's very relevant to the same question that was asked. I don't have a copy of it. So, do you want me to like read all these lines? Do you want me to read each of these, or yes? All right, go ahead.
There's been a lot of community concerns about consultant costs in the district, and on the sheet there you can see it's over totals over $32,000 for 4 different consultants, with the majority being from one Lisa Paterne, which totals over $29,000. I think what a lot of people are wondering is what kind of services do they provide to the district, and what why do we need this, basically.
So that, yeah, so she had provided a listening tour and sessions and workshops. I don't know. And then we also, Kim, do you want to elaborate on that?
I don't know, I always get that line in the circle. Okay, so Dr. Paterni had come in, the board, she had presented to the board over the summer, in an effort to have a deeper understanding and make recommendations to the board. So she has done multiple visits, both individual coaching as well as group. I think just in my calendar, there was probably a good 20 times where I knew she was coming to district, but she also coached some of our leaders. She did some retreats with like central office. So if we were to gather every time she was either in the building or coaching, we're probably close to 30 times that she was available. She also presented to staff, and I was going to talk to the board about this at a later date. Like a lot of the staff had asked, like, what's the next step? I think that she built some really great bonds with folks, and it's a matter of getting some feedback from staff of what they'd like to see, if they like to see anything. So usually consultants get about anywhere from $800 to $1,200 a day. That's just the going rate in their profession. So for her to be in district at least 30 times, or coaching or phone calls or whatever it might be, that she met with the board twice as well. So actually more than once, because she came to present, and then so 3 times. The Capital Region BOCES, Meredith Madden and Allie Hearn, that was a collective, the Schoharie County regional approach when we had a professional development day. And then we shared the cost amongst all the districts. So Rising to Greatness is also Dr. Paterni. So what had happened is originally she was I'm Human, and then the contract was signed over to her own LLC. And then just recently, Alyssa Sabatino came in on our staff development day and worked with staff. And again, I've only heard positive things, well received, working with them on MTSS, which is multi-tiered systems. And she took this all teaching instructional staff and walked them through both sides of the triangle, both academic and behaviorally. And again, intentions are to reach out to find out staff what they want more of. I know that they're very interested in the MTSS. Allie Hearn did the same thing regionally, but unfortunately, I think she lives like in Illinois or Ohio. But Alyssa is one of the most well-respected consultants in the community, in this region, for sure.
Those rates being charged, they're standard for the services they provide,
Yes,
correct?
very much so.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have, every district, including DCS, has worked with consultants for years and years and years. Sometimes we can get what we need through BOCES, but sometimes we can't. It depends what they have, what expertise they have on staff. So this is actually very small compared to what, reaching out to outside of the BOCES world for having a consultant. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Jeff, did I forget anything?
Nope.
Okay.
I think you're released, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next up is standing committee reports, and I think we have one from policy.
We absolutely do. So the policy committee has met. We met last week? Yeah. So our big focus right now is obviously based around kind of the conversation that's going on, a revamp of the code of conduct. Attach the agenda. How can we make that appear on the screen? A computer.
The thing. Where did he go?
Jeff,
He
legitimately
He
disappeared.
actually disappeared. We did, yeah.
It was my fault.
Oh, there he is.
You had to get
You're like the Wizard of Oz.
Now I'm over here. So the policy committee, we're focused on sort of driving forward on trying to make it so that our code of conduct is clearer and easier to understand. It's currently a 79-page document, and it is very wordy. And there's lots of chances in that, lots of opportunities in that wordy document to sort of have misinterpretations. So one of the things we've done as a group is sort of looked at what other local districts do. We've looked at Niskayuna, Durland, Schoharie, and one of the modern moves that people are doing as far as like identifying infractions and sort of how they're handled is sort of a more chart-based approach. So based on kind of our existing code of conduct and our understanding of new ideas that come up, because our code of conduct was last revised, at least the infraction stuff, in, did we decide it was like 15 years old? Yeah. So, cyberbullying is mentioned, but not really a thing. So we have sort of evaluated through it and gone through, broken the expectation into 5 different levels of kind of who handles it and what the understanding of the response should be. That's kind of described here on the first page. Level 1 is a teacher handles it, teacher, staff in the hallway. Level 2, 3, and 4 are all dismissed to administration to handle with different levels of kind of minimum consequences. Again, based on the history of the student. There are mitigating circumstances that, because of a student's special education needs or understanding of kind of the situation, would obviously allow for different handling of certain consequences. And level 5 would be essentially a superintendent's conference. That would be, and we've gone through and sort of identified for each of the things, each of these areas, kind of where we believe that the responsibility to respond and the minimum sort of responsibility lies. Now I say this in that it was the 3 of us put check boxes on a form. The code of conduct is a collaborative document put together by the staff, the community, everybody essentially who's involved. But we had to start somewhere. So we've started in the policy committee. After break, we'll be scheduling time to meet with staff and administration to sort of hear their feedback and work with them on that. And we have a community forum scheduled April 27th? Yeah. April 27th at 6:30 here in Joe Bena Hall to hear what the community feels about the code of conduct and where he can go with it. Some of the things that we've added is, and we've learned that, tobacco products, not great, but what we're actually finding too is that students are destroying the smoke detectors. So that is a situation where we're flagging that as a problem. To try to provide feedback back up. There was no we've added a situation of insubordination for repeat offenders that no longer feel that when you run out of further options, now you have a new option. So we are attempting to try to modernize and understand where things are at with the code of conduct. And again, there'll be opportunity for feedback and discussion coming up.
So, Francis, just so to note that our intentions, or the intention of the committee, is that they'll have a draft to send out to all community members and stakeholders to read prior to
Yes.
the board members talking with them, just because you don't want to get bogged down going through this document, right? So you have time to review it, look at it, and if you have time to come to one of the stakeholder meetings, that'd be great.
Absolutely. And we will have one code of conduct as a district. The athletic extracurricular code of conduct will be rolled into this, and we'll be citing sort of, so we're going to obviously Brett, I know we've talked about what's involved there, how we fit that all together. We're probably going to do some smaller handout version to go to the schools that the parents are supposed to see and sign that link to this major document, because everyone is supposed to sign the code of, supposed to read and review the code of conduct every year and submit a signed piece of paper. Even I don't read it all every year. So, I mean, as a parent, yeah.
Right, so we're required by law to do a plain English.
Right.
And that's where the building level handbook would come in.
Yep. So that's where we stand on this project. Any questions from the board?
So looking at these various categories, such as, and I'm just going to throw out an example, behavior that disrupts the learning environment.
Yes.
Or the learning of other students in the classroom. So how did we get to the level discrepancy, and not discrepancy, determination in this? For instance, this one is level 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
How did, as a subcommittee, how did you?
It's expected that a teacher at some level should manage their classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's level 1. You know, if a kid's they can assign lunch attention or whatever.
Okay.
If that is not working, they can send the child to the office.
And that's level 2?
That's level 2.
Okay.
And if that occurs again or multiple times, the office has higher consequences at their disposal.
Okay. So having said that, now let's go to another level, 4 and 5. For instance, any illegal substance, including marijuana or possession of paraphernalia.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's a no-brainer. So at levels 4 and 5, could you explain exactly what that is? Because that's what it's targeted as. Levels
Yes.
4 and 5.
Well, that would be an immediate sent to the principal to deal with, as is. I think that's actually mandated by law, sort of how that's handled. I'm not entirely positive, but it would be expected to be above the classroom teacher. The classroom teacher should not be seeing a kid with marijuana materials and then moving them on, ignoring it and moving them on.
So that goes to the principal and superintendent.
It could go to the principal. It could go to the superintendent as a hearing if there's further follow-up. Again, it's progressive.
Okay. Is there a mandate that the principal must communicate this with the superintendent at this level?
There's there's reporting at certain levels of situations that then it's actually mandated that it goes to the state, some of it.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thanks.
I was just going to comment on that too, that in the level 4 and level 5 response, at least in the preliminary document, we do have that it might also require notification to local agencies such as Child Protective Services, law enforcement, counseling, drug treatment programs, or PINs.
And this is very much a work in progress.
Very much.
This is
Yes.
a draft. This is
very much a draft, but it's just
Yep.
sort of a demonstration of where the committee's trying to drive with this.
Great.
Any other questions? Cool. I look forward to talking to everybody about it.
There were no other no other committees that met, I don't believe. Okay. All right, next up, we have our financial items. Excuse me. So we will do those together. Be it resolved, based upon the recommendation of the superintendent, that the Board of Education approves the following financial items, 10.01 through 10.07. May I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Francis. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Comments or questions? I have one, but if others have before me. If I understand correctly, Jeff and Kim, the Crossroads contract, excuse me, is a function of our developing this 812.
Yeah, program.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, it's all right. So you can have a sip of water. So the Crossroads contract is something that Danielle has been working really hard on. As we talked about creating this setting for our students in K1, we have a conversation that usually BOCES has these programs. And most of the time, the BOCES teachers just seem to have such a rich experience, and they handle these classrooms because there's intense management needs. And so Danielle and I talked about we want this program to be successful. We want our students to remain home. And what could we do to get this program off the ground that it's as successful as a BOCES program? So Danielle has some great relationships with Crossroads, and they're willing to help support us for the upcoming school year. So I think the contract is for next year, correct, Jeff? The one that's on the agenda is for next year?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
How many students do we ship out?
Oh, how many students are
Yeah.
placed outside? That's how many? How many? So we have 13 currently placed out of district. Just because if you don't talk in the mic, nobody can hear it. But so 13 out of district right now. How many are waiting instruction, waiting a placement? Right, right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, Danielle talked about the 2 students waiting placements. There are just no placements. And it's in no fault of the district or the CSE. Danielle is a champion for our children. So she has two that she's trying very hard to find placements for. 3, I forget what the 3 was. And then what she's talking about, the 5 for this 812, we have 5 children who have communication needs and or autistic. So you have to group kids similarly by what their learner characteristics are. And so because finding out-of-district placements is nearly impossible, and there's so many benefits, not just financial benefits for having these kids being here, it's the social emotional, that they'll still have access to their grade level peers, and they'll still have that social emotional component and exposure to their grade level. So we have 5 children that are going to be entering kindergarten and or first grade, and that's what this classroom is going to be set up for. What was the 3 that you mentioned? Okay, thank you. So a few coming up from UPK as well.
What was I going to say?
Any other questions on any of our financial items?
On 10.07, is that an aid for
No, that's for the in-school suspension.
Yes.
Yes. So that we're doing that effective. So once the board creates the position, then Audrey can go out to OLAS or whatever avenues to try and recruit someone for in-school.
Understood. Thank you.
I remember my question now, and it's really probably more for Danielle than for you guys. I understand placement's hard. Are we going to be able to hire? Do the people exist?
Oh, she should, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, that would be great. So you don't have to shout. Thank you. I think you might have to turn the microphone on. Yeah. Declan turned it.
Okay, so I did provide also learner characteristics. I don't know whether or not Kim has shared that with folks, as well as the cost analysis in terms of the cost savings of developing our own 812 special class program. The reason for this, and I've been working and collaborating with both Capital Region districts through Capital Region BOCES, as well as through the Schoharie area schools. We've been really analyzing how to build our own internal capacity for supporting students with disabilities within the public school districts, because there's a significant shortage of placements across the Capital Region. So given that, unfortunately, fewer teachers are going into the field of special education and education in general, a lot of our private programs that support students with special needs that are more significant are struggling to staff their programs, which is cutting down on the number of classrooms that they're able to open, which is then also trickling back to us, who we are having to program for students that we can't appropriately program for, because we're still legally obligated to provide them with an education. And certainly we don't want children, especially young children, on home instruction. So we are trying to build our own internal capacity to support these kids. I know that neighboring districts, there's been a lot of conversations with Cobleskill, Richmondville, that have physical space, but not necessarily the staffing to have those programs. So we are having a lot of regional planning meetings that I've been a part of to really discuss how we move forward and making sure that we can provide programs for special education students that are in-house. Because right now we know that those out-of-district programs, I think the last student that we had accepted by BOCES, it's been years and years and years. I've had rejection after rejection after rejection, either because they're not currently running programs that meet the profile of kids that need these programs. Currently, there's wait lists or classrooms are being closed, whether that's a non-public school district, an 853 special act, or a BOCES classroom. So, looking at that, looking at our highest need, we obviously have a cohort of kids that need more intensified supports that I'm confident that we can provide those supports in district. These certainly aren't students with any safety issues or things of that nature. These are kids that need assistive technology, some communication. They need very highly specialized instruction, as well as a flexible model of instruction, because they're going to be building those early learner characteristics. So in looking at this program, I had talked with Melissa Kleineman at Crossroads, which is right in Princetown, who runs a very successful Section 853 school for students who are on the autism spectrum, as well as communication-related disorders. They have their own training staff that train their staff in developing these programs in classrooms. So we thought, what a great idea to partner with them to help us do the initial setup of this classroom and program to ensure that we're doing it with fidelity. Obviously, we have not had a special class within the Duanesburg Central School District in quite some time. We've also are starting to, our staff need professional development too on how to engage with these students. How do we support them in a general education environment? What do we expect to see, to hear? What is that going to feel? What is it going to look like? And so I certainly don't want to move forward with a classroom that I don't feel like we're going to be supporting every student in that room. We need to get that up and running. And then hopefully down the road, if we have the capacity to take on cross contracts from other districts. Once we know we have a solid plan in place, that would be the goal. Obviously, we have physical limitations within our district, so we might have this bubble that moves with this cohort of kids, but then we are going to have to partner with other schools within the region on developing other sections of profiles of kids with disabilities that we are unable to meet at this time. So it's really a learning curve, but I do feel like we're getting ahead, and I want to bring these kids. I certainly don't want to send kindergarteners out if we don't need to. So building this program now so that we can support them as they transition up. We try to look at our projections the best that we can. We know that there were some 3-year-olds behind them that will be coming up into kindergarten in about a year and a half that are probably likely going to need this class as well. So this is really taking our projections, looking at our needs, and how we're going to support that cohort moving through their educational career. Yes.
Thank you so much, Danielle.
That's okay. Right now, I don't have any, our older students, so there's different regulations, right? So students have to be grouped within 36 months in age of each other. We cannot go beyond that. So if I look at our current out-of-district placed students based on their ages and their profiles, so in terms of what are their learner characteristics, what are their disabilities, there's not a cohort of kids that fit together. That's why we're going to continue to have those students placed in their appropriate programs. Because their disabilities are very different from one another, we can't group them together. They also fall outside of the 36-month age range. Looking at the cohort that we currently have in kindergarten and then those that are coming up from the UPK age, we can cohort those kids together. They are of similar learning characteristics and profiles, and they are within that 36-month age range, which allows us to do that. Right now, they don't have any openings and for any of those programs. So, and that's why I'm working on this regional planning committee, because while I might have this cohort of kids, obviously we don't want kids switching school buildings, right? So we're going to continue with this cohort moving forward, but then we might need another district to pick up another cohort of kids. And so I'm hoping that if this partnership with Crossroads, which I know is going to be absolutely fantastic, the goal is then to how do we take that model and that partnership and collaboration, and how can other districts then start to tap into that same type of planning model. Yep.
Just another quick question. Understanding that you want to keep kids in district as much as possible. You mentioned 853 schools, which are schools that are generally for students with higher needs.
Mm-hmm.
You said Crossroads is at 853?
And I might have misspoken. Crossroads, it's a non-district school. I'm not sure what exactly article they fall under. There's 853, there's Special Act, there's your BOCES, but ones like Crossroads are those not-for-profits. So, you know, right now I don't have any students that are placed school-aged at Crossroads. I do have a child that's placed at like a Wildwood, and those tuition rates are running between $7,000 and $8,000 per month.
Or Northeastern, which used to be Parsons. Is that something, again?
Northern Rivers and Parsons, we've had students placed there. We do, unfortunately, have a pretty, I would say, a higher rate of transient population within our students with special needs. So we have had kids cycle in and out. We do have a student who attends the Neil Hellman School.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we do partner with schools. Obviously, the whole point of special education and our committee on special education is to ensure that students are receiving programs and services to meet their needs. And so we certainly do have students that need higher ratio classrooms, that need a day treatment programming. And so those students will continue to always be appropriately placed. And the program that we're looking for the 812, this is a group of students who we know we can support with the related service providers that we have, the school psychologist, our school counselor, and having a teacher and 2 other adults within that classroom can create an effective model of learning. These are not students that have significant behaviors. While there is going to be behavior management, it's not anything that requires any sort of greater intensive services than what we can provide safely within our own setting.
And plus, places like Neil Hellman, they have a wraparound team.
Oh, correct.
And,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
used to work
certainly
there.
we're
That's
gonna,
how I know.
yeah, for any
and
kids that
there's a
need.
good communication between them and the schools. And if the student
Yeah.
is able to come back, would definitely the communication.
Oh,
is-
absolutely.
okay.
And we meet yearly to review students that are placed in those out-of-district programs to determine whether or not we can move. We are required by law to look at the placing students in their least restrictive environment. So if students are able to, what I call downstep, right, from a more restrictive program into something less restrictive, we always look at that as a potential option. That's always our goal, is for kids to return to district. But certainly we also have kids who are medically fragile, who have much more significant needs that may be met better in a BOCES program or in a wraparound program, who need more significant mental health services and treatment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Danielle. That was a lot off the cuff, so thank you
that's
so
okay.
much. But that's your everyday, so I guess it's right there. Any other questions on any of our other financial items? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, next up, we have our non-instructional personnel. Be it resolved, based upon the recommendation of the superintendent, that the Board of Education accept and approve non-instructional personnel items 11.01 through 11.05. May I have a motion? Thank you, Tony. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Francis. Comments or questions?
Just that I know some of the 10th graders that are helping Miss Rambo with her plan for the elementary school play, and it sounds really good. Sounds like it's going to be a really good show. I'm excited for that.
And thank you to our volunteers that are coming in to assistant coach without pay. We appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have two other items. Should I do them separately? Because they're not really related to each other. I'll do them separately. Okay, so first item is to approve donations. Be it resolved, based upon the recommendation of the superintendent, that the Board of Education accepts the donation of baseball hats in the amount of $480 for the varsity baseball team from Doug Fall and Delanson Gardens. Lovely. May I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Alyssa. A second? Thank you, Tony. Comments or questions?
This is always so generous. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, next item is approving a non-resident student enrollment. Be it resolved, based upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approves the enrollment of a non-resident student in the Duanesburg Central School District for the remainder of the 25-26 school year, subject to the terms and conditions established by the district. May I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Alyssa. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ray. Comments or questions?
I have a question. I understand there's some extraordinary circumstances involved in this. Ms. Ross, can you elaborate?
Yeah,
Well, a little bit.
yes,
Not
thank you
much,
for that
yeah.
question. It's a great question. Yes, they are. This is a very unusual situation. However, it's not appropriate for us to discuss in open session due to confidentiality and New York State educational laws. But I can say that adopting this resolution is not anticipated to carry any additional costs unique to the student or to the district, and then we would not already pay. So particularly given the time, the limited time in our current staffing situation, I think that it will be seamless and, like I said, at no cost to the district or any of our resources.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, last item is just informational, and Francis mentioned it just a moment ago, that the board will be hosting a community forum to discuss the district's code of conduct. It's scheduled for April 27th at 6:30 here in Jovena Hall. The purpose of the forum is an opportunity for community members to engage, ask questions, provide comments, share feedback with regard to the code of conduct as it undergoes its overhaul.
And feedback on everything.
Yes.
Honestly, even the chart we showed just today, that was all very draft. We'd love to hear feedback and directions. And I want to have cookies. Can we have cookies?
I'm sure we can.
Okay.
Jeff says no.
I'm going to go to Hannaford then and buy a box of cookies.
Okay. All right, that's our last informational piece of information. I don't believe we are in need of an executive session. Okay, so I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening at 8:25. May I have a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. A second? Thank you, Tony. Comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much for being here this evening. Travel safely home.